The Stalinist era of the Soviet Union was defined by fear, power, and ruthless control. Rising after Lenin's death, Joseph Stalin secured leadership through manipulation, purges, and political struggle. Millions suffered, many innocent, and the highest-ranking officials were never safe. With Academy of Shorts, we bring this era to life, presenting 16 figures from Stalin's inner circle through restored archives and cinematic reconstructions. Join us as we welcome you to this exploration of history. Lev Kamenev stood near the core of the Russian Revolution, an early Bolshevik leader known for caution, debate, and restraint. He helped organize power after 1917, argued against rash violence, and believed the new state required limits and collective rule. Those views later marked him for destruction. As Stalin tightened control, former comrades became expendable. Kamenev was arrested, isolated, and forced into scripted confessions that bore no relation to fact. The trials were performances, designed to instruct fear. In 1936, he was sentenced and executed, erased from public memory. Kamenev was not defeated by ideology, but consumed by it, becoming one of the earliest and clearest victims of Stalin's purge. His fate revealed how revolutions devour their own, long before history is allowed to speak plainly. Grigori Zinoviev stood near the core of the Russian Revolution, an early Bolshevik leader who, alongside Lev Kamenev, formed a temporary alliance with Joseph Stalin after Lenin's death. Together, they worked to marginalize rival factions and consolidate party control, believing collective leadership could preserve stability. Zinoviev was a prominent theorist and head of the Communist International, confident that loyalty and compromise would ensure survival. That assumption proved fatal. As Stalin tightened his grip, former allies became liabilities. Zinoviev was removed from power, forced into repeated public self-criticisms, and isolated from influence. Arrested during the purges, he was compelled to confess to fabricated conspiracies and trials designed to demonstrate absolute obedience. In 1936, Zinoviev met his end by execution. Andrei Zhdanov moved through the Soviet state as both guardian and weapon of ideology. Rising beside Stalin, he enforced obedience in art, literature, and thought, defining loyalty as discipline and dissent as crime. Writers learned silence, composers learned fear, and culture narrowed to command. Zhdanov was not consumed by the purges that destroyed others. He stood closer to power than danger. His speeches hardened doctrine into ritual, and his name became a warning whispered in studios and classrooms across the country. Yet authority exacted its own price. His health collapsed under pressure and excess. By the final years, his drinking was so relentless that even Stalin intervened, ordering him to abandon alcohol and drink only juice. Zhdanov died in 1948, worn down by the system he helped perfect. Mikhail Tukhachevsky rose from the chaos of civil war as one of the Red Army's most gifted commanders. In the Polish campaign of 1920, he pursued rapid maneuver, deep operations, and modern war on an unprecedented scale, earning fame and fear. During the 1920s, his ideas reshaped Soviet military thought, and his authority grew with each reform. In 1935, he was elevated to Marshal of the Soviet Union, the youngest ever, a symbol of professional army. Yet beneath the triumph lay tension. Long-standing disagreements with Stalin, combined with Tukhachevsky's rising popularity and independence of mind, marked him as dangerous. What had been innovation became suspicion. In 1937, doubts hardened into accusation. Arrested and executed, Tukhachevsky's brilliance vanished in silence, leaving a warning etched into Soviet history. Felix Dzerzhinsky was born in 1877, a revolutionary shaped by prison, exile, and obsession with discipline. After the Bolshevik seizure of power, he became the founder of the Cheka, the Soviet State Security Service. Cold, ascetic, and relentless, Dzerzhinsky believed terror was a necessary instrument to defend the revolution. Under his command, surveillance, arrests, and executions became tools of the new state. Known as Iron Felix, he lived without comfort, sleeping little and working endlessly. In July 1926, after delivering a fierce speech condemning opposition within the party, his exhausted body failed. He collapsed from heart failure, dying not in disgrace, but at the center of power he helped build. His legacy remains inseparable from fear, devotion, and the machinery of repression that shaped the Soviet state. Mikhail Kalinin was one of the most enduring faces of the Soviet state. Born into a peasant family, he rose with the Bolshevik Revolution and became, for decades, the formal head of the USSR. To millions, he appeared as a modest, approachable figure, the so-called all-union elder, shaking hands, listening, reassuring. Yet behind this calm exterior stood a system of immense power and suffering. Kalinin rarely shaped policy, but he gave it legitimacy, lending his presence to decisions that changed countless lives. His story is not one of command, but of symbol. In his quiet endurance, we see how authority can wear a human face, and how history often remembers those who stood, not at the center of power but beside it. His legacy remains uneasy, suspended between loyalty, silence, and the weight of what was left unsaid. Genrikh Yagoda was one of the most feared administrators of Stalin's security state. Rising from revolutionary obscurity, he became head of the NKVD in the mid-1930s, overseeing arrests, surveillance, and the expansion of the Gulag system. Unlike ideologues, Yagoda was a bureaucrat of repression, methodical and obedient, translating political suspicion into administrative action. His power rested not on charisma, but on access, paperwork, and proximity to Stalin himself. Yet the machinery he directed was ruthless even to its architects. As the Great Purge intensified, Yagoda was accused of treason, publicly humiliated, and executed in 1938. His life reveals how loyalty offered no protection, and how terror ultimately consumed those who enforced it. In the end, his fall served as a warning written in blood and silence. Sergo Ordzhonikidze stands as one of the driving forces of the Soviet industrial surge, a man of fierce loyalty and restless energy. Born in Georgia, shaped by revolution, he rose beside Stalin and carried the weight of transformation on his shoulders. As commissar of heavy industry, he pushed factories into life, steel and coal into motion, often at a brutal human cost. Yet behind the authority was strain, exhaustion, doubt, and growing fear as the system he served turned inward. In 1937, isolated and pressured, Ordzhonikidze died suddenly, but under suspicious circumstances, leaving history divided between devotion and tragedy. A builder consumed by the machine he helped create. His story reflects the paradox of power in the 1930s. Belief mixed with coercion, ambition tangled with silence, and a personal fate sealed long before the final moment. Nikolai Yezhov stands at the center of one of the darkest chapters of Soviet power. Rising swiftly through loyalty and fear, he became the face of the state's machinery at a moment when suspicion ruled policy. Under his watch, orders multiplied, lists lengthened, and silence spread through offices and streets alike. He worked relentlessly, driven by pressure from above and terror from below, convincing himself that precision could tame chaos. Yet the system he enforced consumed even its architects. Exhaustion marked his features, anxiety sharpened his voice, and certainty began to fracture. Yezhov was not merely an executioner of policy, but a man trapped inside it, useful, replaceable, and ultimately discarded by the same force he served. History would reduce him to a symbol of terror, stripped of excuses or refuge. Valerian Kuybyshev emerged during the collapse of the Russian Empire as a disciplined Bolshevik organizer who deliberately encouraged civil unrest in major cities. Through strikes, agitation, and underground coordination, he helped transform economic collapse and public anger into political momentum. After the revolution, he became one of the Soviet Union's most tireless administrators, directing industrial planning and state management with relentless intensity. Kuybyshev worked long hours, lived poorly, and relied heavily on alcohol, while pushing himself beyond physical limits. In 1935, he died suddenly, officially from heart failure. Many historians link his death to exhaustion and unhealthy habits, though persistent rumors suggest he may also have been an unacknowledged victim of Stalin's purge system at that time. Lavrentiy Beria emerged from the Caucasus as one of the most feared figures of Stalin's inner circle. During the consolidation of Soviet power, he rose through the security apparatus with methodical efficiency, presenting himself as an organizer rather than an ideologue. As head of the NKVD, Beria oversaw internal security at the height of state terror, combining administrative precision with ruthless obedience to Stalin's will. He expanded surveillance, managed labor camps, and enforced political repression while cultivating an image of calm control. After Stalin's death, Beria briefly positioned himself as a reformer, but his power alarmed the collective leadership. Arrested in 1953, he was swiftly tried and executed, ending a career defined by fear, discipline, and proximity to absolute power. His shadow endured. Kliment Voroshilov was a prominent figure of the early Soviet state, rising from a factory worker and Bolshevik activist to the highest levels of power under Joseph Stalin. A veteran of the Russian Civil War, he became People's Commissar for Defense in 1925 and helped oversee the Red Army during a period of rapid expansion and political control. His standing suffered during the Winter War of 1939 to 1940, when Soviet forces performed poorly against Finland, revealing serious weaknesses in leadership, training, and doctrine. Although removed from military command, Voroshilov remained closely allied with Stalin, survived the terror that eliminated many rivals, and later served as the Soviet Union's formal head of state. He lived into old age, dying in 1969, having endured and outlasted the Stalinist system he helped sustain. Nikolai Bukharin was one of the most prominent intellectuals of the Bolshevik Revolution and a key figure of the early Soviet state. A gifted theorist and journalist, he rose rapidly after 1917, becoming editor of Pravda and a full member of the Politburo. During the 1920s, he advocated the new economic policy and warned against forced collectivization, placing him in growing conflict with Joseph Stalin. Once a close ally, Bukharin was gradually isolated, accused of ideological deviation, and removed from power. Arrested during the Great Purge, he was subjected to a staged trial, publicly confessed under pressure, and executed in 1938. His fate became a symbol of the revolution, devouring its own. Decades later, he was posthumously rehabilitated, and his writings were re-examined as evidence of a lost alternative path. Lazar Kaganovich was one of the most feared and uncompromising figures of Stalin's inner circle. A loyal enforcer rather than a theorist, he played a decisive role in forced collectivization, industrialization, and the brutal consolidation of Soviet power during the 1930s. His authority was marked by harsh discipline, mass repression, and an unwavering readiness to carry out orders without hesitation. Kaganovich oversaw key projects and policies that demanded human sacrifice on a vast scale, leaving a legacy inseparable from coercion and suffering. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he survived Stalin's death and political downfall. Living into extreme old age, Kaganovich witnessed the final decades of the Soviet system and, in the late 1980s, saw the first signs of the Union's collapse, outliving the world he built in. Vyacheslav Molotov emerged from the underground socialist circles of the 1910s, shaped by exile, arrest, and discipline. As a young Bolshevik organizer, he built networks among workers and party cadres, earning a reputation for loyalty and precision. Rising steadily, he became a central figure of Stalin's inner circle and was appointed People's Commissar for Foreign Affairs in 1939. Molotov represented the Soviet Union with cold formality, most famously signing the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a moment that reshaped Europe on the eve of war. Unlike many contemporaries, He survived purges and disgrace, living long enough to witness the slow unraveling of the system he helped build, dying in the mid-1980s as the Soviet era approached its end. His life traced the full arc of Soviet power, from revolution to rigid decline. Joseph Stalin emerged from the margins of the Russian Empire as a disciplined revolutionary shaped early by conspiracy and organization. In his youth in the Caucasus, he helped arrange strikes and clandestine protests among oil workers in Batumi, coordinating meetings, leaflets, and collections under constant police pressure. These early actions revealed a talent for control rather than rhetoric. Rising through the Bolshevik ranks, he became a master of party machinery, appointments, and enforcement. As leader of the Soviet Union, he oversaw forced industrialization, mass repression, and wartime mobilization. Stalin ruled through fear, patience, and calculation, leaving a legacy defined by victory, trauma, and enduring controversy. His life ended in 1953, but the systems he built continued to shape the state after. We have now reached the end of this video. Thank you for staying with us until the conclusion. Together, we have examined 16 figures, leaders, military commanders, and statesmen who shaped the Soviet Union during the era of Joseph Stalin. Their decisions, actions, and influence left lasting marks on history. Did we miss someone you believe should have been included? Would you like to see similar content or a deeper focus on a specific individual or historical period? Let us know your thoughts and leave a comment below. We'll see you next time, here on Academy of Shorts.